Let's see. Bereish Parshaseinu Nemar Acharei Moshe Bnei Aharon B'Kirv Asam Lifnei Hashem V'Yamusu. In the beginning of our parsha, it says, after the death of the two sons of Aaron, when they approached before Hashem and they died. Ve'enu Muvan. Mamo Sifa Teva V'Yamusu Lachar Shenemar Kvar Acharei Mos Bnei Aharon. What do you have to say after the death of the children of Aaron when they came close and died? Well, obviously it's after the death of them, so they died. What do you mean? Why is the Torah adding another word, V'Yamusu? B'Medrash Chazal, right? Everybody understands? Acharei Mos, it says after they died, and then at the end of the pasuk it says V'Yamusu, and they died. We already said after they died. After they died, when they came and then died. Well, you just told me after they died. So what are you repeating the word V'Yamusu? B'Medrash Chazal, Nimnu Kama Min Advarim Shalei Nanshu Bnei Aharon. We said in the Medrash it says a few reasons why the Bnei Aharon were punished. And they went in way too far. They went into the Holy of Holies. They weren't wearing the proper garments. They weren't wearing enough clothes. They weren't wearing all of the clothes that were required for that kind of avoda. And thirdly, lo hayu lahem banim. They didn't have children. Lo yahelem nashim. They didn't have wives. They didn't get married. Okay. This is in Teres Kohanim and Vayikra Rabbah, the different places. He's bringing these four. He's kind of choosing these four reasons from the different midrash. So if the medrash is saying they didn't have kids, they weren't wearing enough clothes, they went into the Holy of Holies, they didn't have wives, these all must be somehow perceived in hints in the Torah themselves for the medrash to pick up on them, right? The medrash is not making them up, right? It obviously received them through tradition, but can see that they're somehow hinted to in the psukim themselves. Gam tzarich lahavin. Haketzad yitachin ma'isa shel chet etzel Nadav and Avihu. How could they have done a chet? They were the holy of the holies. How could they sin? Halo kvar amru Chazal amr lo Moshe Aaron. Moshe said to Aaron. It says Chazal say the Moshe said to Aaron, Aaron achi yodea hayisi shis kadesh abayis b'miu adav of akrov shel makom achshav ro'ani shehem Nadav and Avihu gadol b'menu mimcha. So now I see that they were even. Moshe says to Aaron, I see that they were even holier than us because they had a greater part in the holifying and the sanctifying of the Beis Hamikdash. So then how is it possible that they did a sin? And this is again the Orach Chaim discusses this, and this is in Chasidus. Okay. It wasn't a chet like we understand sinning. It's not like we sin. What was their sin? Their sin was that they did not restrain their intense dveikus, their intense feeling of connection to Hashem, to godliness. They did not restrain it from taking their life. It was so unrestrained. It was so unrestrained, this feeling that they had to connect to the Eibishter, to connect to godliness. And, you had the whole, how could you blame them? You had there was the inauguration of the Mishkan, right? This was Hashem finishing his whole purpose of creation, making the Beis Hamikdash, right? This was the whole point of coming out of Yitzias Mitzrayim, to make as the Ramban says, to make the Mishkan. Get the Torah and make the Mishkan. And so they were overwhelmed, and their chet was they did not restrain themselves. They let themselves go a little too much. What
does that mean, let go?
They didn't restrain themselves.
What does that mean?
Well, let's see if we can get some clarity. I don't know what it means.
Well, come on, will you?
But that's what he says. They didn't restrain themselves.
It sounds like you had a boundary you had to keep, and they went past it.
They went past. They let their spiritual. They got caught up in the spiritual moment, and it was a little too. They should have been a little bit more
subdued.
Well, yeah. Listen, there was
a guy in the Minyan the other day. He was wrapped up all in white, and had ropes around it, and everybody's davening like guys from far Rockaway daven, like nice, and
Felt arrows.
like Falcaros or whatever. Guys from Far Rockaway, Brooklyn, they daven nice. And this guy was like, is that what is that it? Is that the idea?
Could be. I don't know what these ropes you're talking about are, but it reminds me of, Everything is Illuminated. Did you ever read that book, Everything is Illuminated, by Jonathan Safran Foer? Very funny book. Very, very funny book. Anyway, he describes the shtetl, and they would hoist themselves up on ropes to get them closer to Shemayim. It's a Jewish funny book? Scene. I mean, he's a Jewish guy. He's a Jewish guy. Well, to heaven. I mean, it's very funny. Oh my gosh! If you want a bathroom book, it's very, very funny.
I sent you like Hoshiani, like the goy's teeth and all that. You don't know that one?
No. Okay. How's it going? Okay. Can someone take his phone away from him?
I'll ask ChatGPT.
You have to restrain yourself. They did not restrain themselves. No, we're talking about what did Nadav and Avihu do? What did the sons of Aharon do that they died? It couldn't be a sin like we normally think. Their sin was that they did not restrain themselves. They got carried away. They got carried away with, dare I say, emotion. Okay, I don't want emotion. I mean, to talk about emotion, but that's my word. Okay, but that's how I understand it. They got carried away with some kind of emotional, but it was obviously much deeper than that. It wasn't just. It was a very deep emotion. It wasn't an emotion like they got a bouquet of flowers and they got all smitten. I mean, it was like it was some deep emotion. The dover zanach shav lechet. This was considered a chet, that they did not restrain themselves. They allowed themselves to be carried away. They did not by themselves. They allowed themselves to be carried away by the moment. The Torah. They were killed. They died, and the Medrash brings many reasons why they did what they did wrong.
Guesses.
They drank.
Many guesses.
Guesses. I wouldn't say guesses.
No. They're not guesses. They're for real, but.
They're all for real.
But still,
they're all highlighting another element of what was chasser. If they had wives, they wouldn't have gotten carried away. If they had children, they wouldn't have gotten carried away. If they were wearing the right amount of clothes, they wouldn't have gotten carried away. If they hadn't drunk, they wouldn't have gotten carried away. You could plug it back into all of the answers unless
you look at the whole situation as a benefit and not a loss. What they were doing?
They died.
People died. They died in a very...
No. It should be done.
It says in Shemini, previous, it said that Hashem didn't command us.
Right.
You know what it means?
No.
So you're supposed to live by the Torah, not die by it. That's what he wants to tell you.
Well, that's part of it. That's definitely shalot sivo some. But
that's what he wants to say. It's like
right. But then the widest Chazal bring all these other reasons. They could have just said lot sivo some, right? So there are. Basically, the questions like this when we hear these when in Shmi, I don't want to get into it. Okay, let's just go in this thread. We can talk all day about Nadav and Avihu and what this whole parsha is about and everything like that. But we're just going to go. There are like several sichos just on Nadav and Avihu in this book, right? This is not all the sichos, right? So there are two here. They're in Shmini. There's a lot to discuss. So let's just stick to the words here. And it'll be a Pesach. It'll be just an opening to start to maybe just think about the issues involved in this parsha. It was considered a sin. This was even though a Jew needs to want, needs to long, needs to act on themselves in their service to God, that it should be in a way that they are totally hispashis agashmius, right? I was just learning the Chovos Levavos today that it says when you're involved in the duties of the heart, when you're involved in tefillah, when you're involved in thinking about Hashem and loving Hashem, you should work to remove any thought of this world, like to completely be disconnected from your physical needs, from what's going on in your life, and just try to. That's hispashtas agashmias. So there's an unclothing of physicality that is part of the avoda in connecting to Hashem in certain internal ways that we need. We want to be disconnected from our physicalness to a degree. So So there is that element that is kosher. Okay, so even though that does exist, this was still considered a sin and a misdeed by Nadav and Avihu, a miss by Nadav and Avihu, that they allowed themselves to be totally carried away and be killed. So even though that we should inspire ourselves. We should inspire ourselves, and when we're doing things that are not connected to physicality, we should kind of have this hispashtas hagashmias. When we're davening, we should not be thinking of our menial, secular, physical needs and things like that. When we're connecting to the Eibishter, when we're feeling connected to Him, when we're trying to love Him and humble ourselves to Him and have an internal posture towards Him, we should not be thinking, oh, but I have that doctor's appointment at 11 and the bus and oh, the cat needs to go to the vet and like there should be a total stripping of our physical issues in order that we connect. However, that is only along with, that's ritzo, right? There's ritzo v'shov. There's an idea in Kabbalah and in Hasidus, ritzo v'shov, the running and the returning. So that running, it's like we're running to the Eibishter, we're running to Ruchnius, we're running to spirituality, but there also has to be a shov. There also has to be a return. Whatever we get, whatever heights we gain, whatever milas, whatever level we reach in our avod at any particular time, it's always with the intention that we're going to bring it back into our lives. It doesn't stay up in the ether. We don't stay up in the ether. We're not meant to be angels that are living forever in some kind of ecstatic state. But it always should be with the intention that we want to bring it back into our yom in our daily lives. That's the shov. That's the return, to bring it down, to bring it into our avoda of a nefesh and a guf, a nefesh, a neshama in a guf, in a body. Hanasa ba'olam hazeh davka, that we work in this world. Kamaymer Rizal, Chazal say, al karcha chatachai. You can't help but be alive. You can't. A normal person, 99% of people, they can't end themselves on purpose. They cannot. Your body will not let you do it. Your mind will not let you end yourself. You have to stay in this world. As much as you want to, whether it's because you're sick and somebody wants to end their life because they're depressed, or because they're just they're just done with this world. They want to be connected to the infinity and then Ein Sof and everything like that. They're just ready to just leave. No. We have to. Sorry, not now. We have to stay in this world. We have to stay in our body. I don't know if this is a problem we face, but if we did, we'd have to calm down a little bit. Okay. Because what? Right? What does Hashem want? He wants in this world a comfortable place, right? He's fine already. He's very comfortable in the upper worlds, right? The angels and all of the malachim and all of the spheros and all of the whatever's going on up there. Everyone's saying kadosh, kadosh, kadosh. Hashem feels very fine there. That's not the problem. He wants to be comfortable here. He wants to be comfortable in this world. This is where we need to bring him here. In this world where it's possible to deny him, where it's possible to live our whole lives without even considering him, where it's possible to think we can have our own personal agenda in the world, which is it's a joke that we can have our own agenda. Hashem is keeping us alive and keeping the world going every single moment. And I think I have my own agenda. Hashem, thank you. I have my, it's like the guy who's looking for the parking spot. And he's saying, if you find a parking spot, I'll donate $1,000 to tzedakah, and then a car starts pulling. Oh no, don't worry, Hashem, I got it. So it's like that's the joke of having our own personal agenda. That Hashem is just kind of like he's like the ATM. I've got my agenda, but it needs the funding. Okay, so I daven, and that's like going to the ATM. So I daven, I do my work, I daven, I put on tefillin, I learn a little Torah. That's my pin code. I got my money. Okay, I'm going to do what I want to do now. I'm going to do my thing now. Okay, that's not the goal. That's not the goal. The goal is to be totally living in the ATM. Or whatever. It's to be in Hashem's agenda, not to have our own agenda that Hashem's he's just my sponsor. Okay. So Klomer, let's say lisnatik minolam. We're not supposed to go out and disconnect from this world. We have to make this physical world, this world down here, this world that there's no lower world from it. Below it, this is the world that Hashem wants us to bring him into. And since Nadav and Avihu, they were rotza, they had the rotzo, they wanted to run, they wanted to get, they was so inspiring. They were just like, what is this world about? Let's just get out of here. Like, this is like, let's, what is this pop steak, this pop stand, let's beat this pop stand, whatever, let's make a break.
It's like, whatever, like in the old days, everybody was like taking acid and they were taking, now now you can go to the doctor and, have them shoot you up with ketamine. What do you think? What does anybody think is happening in those rooms?
What's ketamine?
Horse tranquilizer.
Horse tranquilizer. What's
And
his
that's
name?
used
It's
to
in
cut
business.
They used it in
Alex,
cocaine.
I love that. He's the greatest. That's his business. You go to his clinic and
Who?
Alex used to come here. I don't know if you know him. He lives in the Rova, but he's moving to the middle of town. And they administer ketamine, and after
Legally?
I thought he
totally legally.
Here in Israel?
I thought
God.
he did.
I thought
psychedelics.
That's ketamine.
Well,
You call it horse tranquilizer, but ketamine is really it's a psychedelic.
it's not. Daniel is right. It's a horse tranquilizer. It's a chemical.
I guess it's the chemical, like it's not psilocybin or whatever.
No.
It's like
No, but
No,
they
but
add
it's exact-
it
but
to they cut it with cocaine too, so that you get this high, but you don't go crazy or something.
okay.
I like the
dangerous.
crazy
It
part.
could be
The crazy
crazy.
part was the fun part.
What?
Nothing.
But you're going to come down. Okay. So if you go there, this is why people, the ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is very popular.
Yeah,
What are you pointing at me for?
Could you drink it, then you throw up, and then you hallucinate?
It sounds like
Okay,
college.
listen, ayahuasca. Ask your local Orthodox rabbi. Apparently, in New York, it's very popular among from people, the Shiva Shavelt of the psychological, healing thing. But I have somebody who I know who was very into it off the derech, and tainas that it's completely avodah zarah. So it's whatever. But anyway, the point is that people do this ayahuasca and they get hooked on the doing ayahuasca. And it's like the amazing openness they see, they're kind of hooked to that. But what the point was really to come back into this world and now do the work of, okay, now you saw everything so clear. So now you have to work in the world and do it. No, they just wanted to have and so unfortunately, it's like what started as a journey of healing and self-awareness and healing and forgiveness and being at peace and all these things like that, because the bringing the shov, the bringing it back into our lives and now integrating and doing the work of okay, I have to not yell at my mother-in-law, not yell at my kids, and not yell at okay, so let me just do ayahuasca again, and get that feeling all over again, and get that, and get that clarity all over again. And so people start, they're just hooked on the ayahuasca, and it's like they're doing it over and over and over again, because the work in between is, listen, I don't know, that's what could happen. And so that's kind of what, I'm not saying Nadav and Avihu did ayahuasca, but
this ketamine thing is legal.
okay.
There's a doctor
Great.
who prescribes it and administers it, and
I'm not giving a haskama to it. I'm just saying that things, while we can go to new states in order to experience new elements, it has to be understood that you're doing it not so I can all the time stay in such a out-of-body state, but that I have to bring the understandings and the realizations and the enlightenment that I get there and integrate it into my day-to-day. And so it was considered a sin that Nadav and Avihu kind of went off into this place and just thought that that's where they should stay. And they didn't restrain themselves to come back and to bring that spiritual enlightenment and that ruchnius back into this world, and that was their mistake.
This is my category. This gets me high. This keeps me grounded. This
This guy
teaches me
See, gets me high and keeps me grounded. See, that's
it.
You like that?
Yeah,
It's true, though. It's true. Right, Robert?
Good to
two are connected up and two are connected down, and you're in the.
Yes. I don't need any horse tranquilizer.
I mean, I don't want you to leave though
Tell me
until you
which
can
way the wind's
really
blowing.
talk about this. The fact that fire was positive on so many other levels, and there's something positive about it.
Well, because listen, they're
What? You're
because
not
look,
gonna-
because look, I already said, because they wanted ruchnius. It wasn't like they wanted something else, but they were missing the second part. The second part was to come back down. They were unrestrained. They didn't restrain themselves enough. They even though the Ritzo, the running after Ruchnius and that inspiration, that's what was positive. That's positive. That is a part of all of our avoda.
They were trying to do extra, actually. They were trying to, they knew that it wasn't authorized, but they were trying to go beyond that, like 10 plus.
Right. The moment of ecstasy that was happening at this the day of inaugurating the Mishkan was so that they didn't hold themselves back. They went with it and did something that they shouldn't have done because they were too unrestrained. They were too much ritzo, and they did not understand that they needed to be shov also. And so they got carried away. And the fire was a response to their honest ritzo she'ifas, and it wasn't that Kataris is a bad thing. Kataris is a good thing.
There's a lot of people that have had overdoses and died, and they did not have a death wish. They absolutely did not have a death wish.
Okay.
Several big shots that we all know that.
Well, big shots down here, not big shots up there.
Well, whatever, they were big shots, and they got too high. It was a cocktail. It was a little of this, a little boop, 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 and a little beep, 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 and whatever it is. And
Same thing. Same problem. It's not that they have a death wish. With the Nadav and Avihu had a death wish. They have a death wish. But they wanted to be so Listen, we have two neshamas, right? We have a neshama Bahamas. We have a neshama Elokis. We have an animal soul and we have a godly soul. Our animal soul wants to stay alive at all costs. It realizes it's mortal, right? It's a created thing. It's human. All humans have a nefesh Bahamas. I guess all animals also have some kind of nefesh Bahamas. And its job is to keep us alive at all costs, to keep us alive. And that's why all of our negative traits, which are really coming from fear and really mainly from the fear of death, right? We're going to die. We're not enough. We can't stay here enough because we're going to eventually pass. So it's freaked out. And so it tries to get. So that the drive of the animal soul is to stay here and to be alive. The drive of the neshama Elokis is to completely be reabsorbed back into Elokus. Is to completely, like a flame of a candle that is next to the sun. It just wants to be reabsorbed into the sun. It wants to go back at this world. It has no interest in. It doesn't. What am I? It's like the princess of the king that gets sent out to the poor village. What is it? It's like to marrying a country boy. Like it doesn't. It's not happy here. It's not comfortable here, and it wants to go away. And so the nefesh Eloki, since it's immortal, it doesn't have any fear, it doesn't have any problem, it's not defensive, it doesn't get, high and mighty, it doesn't get upset. So if you know you're getting upset about something, it's your nefesh Bahamas, because it's out of fear. The nefesh Elokis could care less, it just wants to go back. And so it's this joining that we have. And so Nadav and Avihu, they were unrestrained, and they just wanted to return back into the great white yonder.
Saying that makes it sound like that you have I don't know how the euphemistic.
It's not a death wish out suicide. It's that the excitement, the ecstasy, the spiritual dveikus, the dveikus that I want with Hashem is so overpowering. I'm not putting it in check that it's hello, yes, it's overpowering. That person's on such a level where they're so in touch with that inner love of that love which wants to of the nefesh elokis, which is an inside love which we all have. We all have. We're not in touch with it, but we all have it. Tanya says we all have this inner love that is a love, but it's really just a wanting to be reabsorbed back into Hashem, and so they were in touch with that, but to a fault. Because they didn't realize that the point is not to be reabsorbed back into Hashem. The point is that they need to make this world a dwelling place for Hashem. That we need to bring our spiritual, goals and she'ifas and everything like that. But it shouldn't be so we're reabsorbed and we no longer we don't have this world anymore. But the point is for this world. And so we can't get carried away with our dveikus that we forget the world. And so even though people don't have a death wish, but what do they have with this world? What do they have with this world? It's so, this world is so whatever. I'm not saying that, I don't want to compare Nadav and Avihu and Jimi Hendrix, Havdil, Elif Abdullah. But it's like, this was there is a goal here. There is a goal here, but it needed to be tempered. It needed to be mixed with the fact that this world is the purpose. And they unrestrained. They left themselves unrestrained.
Talking about that, we're trying to connect strongly with the physicality of this world. These guys are trying to connect stronger with the spiritual side of this world, with the aspirations of.
So that's that's pretty
That's
solid. That's a very solid answer. Whatever these, the Hendrixes of the world, which was actually one of the examples, is a guy who lives down the block, used to play with him, lives in the, he doesn't live, he moved, whatever, a guy who lives here in Israel now, and he used to play with him, and he said, Ronnie, I'm telling you, he definitely didn't want to die.
They just wanted to get more of the physicality of this world.
They wanted more high. They wanted more high. They were addicted to the high.
That's what they wanted.
And that high was making them feel alive. That was making them feel alive. And so they wanted to feel alive so much it killed them.
Right.
I don't know if Nadav and Avihu, it wasn't about feeling alive. I don't want to.
These guys wanted to connect higher.
Yeah, they were connected to their nefesh elokis. Yeah. They were connected to this that wanted to be reabsorbed into the Eibishter, which happens to be an intense pleasure and all of that. But it was. That's not the point.
Higher spirituality, those guys were.
So now that Louis actually put it in perspective for me, you think that anybody else ever had those kind of aspirations?
I don't think that anybody had those aspirations. Certainly not Goyim. Goyim don't have a nefesh elokis. They don't have a nefesh elokis, so they don't have that element that wants to reconnect to Hashem like that, like a flame wanting to go back to the fire.
And a Jew?
A Jew, it's somebody who's so in touch with that inner love that's for normal people. It's totally, we're not conscious of it all. We're not conscious of it all. So it's hard for me to, like Reb Chaim Kanievsky, like the Vilna Gaon, like he wants to, like it's like talking to people who are actually connected to that inner love.
They always used to say that the Rebbe, when he would give over a mimer,
right, he would put.
You have to hold on to the
or he
table.
would wrap his hands in handkerchief. He would wrap his fingers with a handkerchief.
What's the reason for that?
This reason. It was to keep him grounded.
Give over a mimer.
That's what this does for me. This keeps me grounded.
There you go.
Reminds me all the time. I'm
Because otherwise you're going to fly up. You're going to float up
my
to
head's going to
explode.
Yeah. Right. This reminds me I'm just a little pitulia down here, and there's.
Well, even if you're not, even if you're the most amazing Ruchni's thing, but the world, it's for this. It's not to get unrestrained. That's what they're like. They should have been holding on to something, and they didn't. They let themselves go. They let themselves go, and they flew up.
Okay.
And that was considered a chet.
It's getting better now.
And they died. That's why, as he explains here, why does the Torah, remember, he opens with the question. It says after the death of the children of Aharon, when they died, What do you mean? Why does it repeat when they died? So this explains why it says when they died again. The tam shel most shnei bnei Aharon shaya lefi shebezeh haya chetam b'kirvasam lifnei Hashem. Their sin. This was their chet, that in their coming close to Hashem, v'yamusu, they allowed themselves to die. V'yamusu, and they died. Kiruvam el HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'ofen shel v'yamusu. Their coming close to Hashem was this way, not like a death wish, but was their coming close to Hashem was in a way that was so unrestrained that they died. They did that. They were so unrestrained that they died. So when it says after the death of Bnei Aharon, b'kirvasam lifnei Hashem v'yamusu, it was in their coming close to Hashem that they died. That was their problem. That was the problem.
Well, the real problem was their action at that time was unauthorized.
No.
Yes.
That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is that the unauthorization, the fact that it was unauthorized, it wasn't even necessarily that it was unauthorized. Right, it was
unauthorized. That's why they died. They
well,
were supposed to do that at that time, okay?
Maybe they, according to this, if they did it with a restraint, meaning they wouldn't have done it had they been restrained. Maybe they wouldn't have done it. I mean, that's the big question with all these things. If they had wives, would they have still taken the Kataris, but they wouldn't have died? Like or they wouldn't have even taken the Kataris? I just hear this question the next time you hear these reasons why they died, right? They weren't married, they drank, they this and that. So what happens? Okay, fine, so they didn't drink. So if they didn't drink, then what? If they hadn't drunk, then what? Then they wouldn't have done it, or they wouldn't have died.
If they had,
okay, I'm just putting that out as a question.
But
okay, if they had children, if they had gotten married, they wouldn't have done it at all. They wouldn't have done the Kataris. They wouldn't have done it, or they would have done it, but they would have lived. So according to this, it's not clear. We don't know exactly yet. Maybe they would have done it, but they would have done it in a way that would have, with the intention of bringing it back down to this world.
All things that you're mentioning are anchors.
Okay.
Anchors for this.
So does that mean they wouldn't have done it at all? They would have just, they would have restrained themselves, or they would have done it in a way that would have been restrained. Meaning, was the whole thing an expression of their unrestrained dveikus? Or was it that they could have done it, but had they been married, or had they not drank, or had they been wearing the right amount of clothing, they would have been anchored enough in this world that they would have done it in a way that would have pulled it back. And even though it wasn't authorized,
you keep saying
it still would have.
If they've done it.
The Kataris, bringing the Kataris, bringing this incense. They brought the incense. That's what they did.
That's the it.
That's what they did. Yes. Now, then they died from it. So it says, if they would have drunk, if they were drunk, they were this, they were that. So the question is, that you have to ask is, then what? So if they had not drunk, if they had been married, if they had been wearing the right things, if they hadn't, so that means they wouldn't have brought the Kataris at all, or they would have brought the Kataris still, but it wouldn't have killed them. Which is it? Okay. It's a question. Everyone has to think about it from the side.
Let me just tell you what it says.
No. I'll piece that. I got 4 minutes. I'll give
you an extra minute. Unauthorized worship. The term unauthorized.
I was thinking you should ask other questions to ChatGPT. Okay, ask it what it thinks about gay marriage.
Okay, we can get to that if you want.
Ask it what it thinks, and then see if you like what ChatGPT. See what it thinks about the whole trans movement, and then you follow what ChatGPT says.
Okay, so here's what it says. Zahar indicates that they performed a ritual not commanded by God. This act of introducing a new form of worship without divine instruction.
Okay, that's not clear. That's not exactly true because the fact that one of the reasons that he doesn't bring it here, but one of the reasons Chazal brings for why they died was because they paskin the halacha before Moshe. They paskin halacha in front of Moshe. Like Moshe should have given the meaning to say that the Ketores was an avoda that was authorized, but they lo tziva osam. Not that lo tziva, not that Hashem didn't command bringing of the Kataris, but lo tziva osam. Hashem didn't command them to bring it. Oh. They thought they could. And so the question is had they not drunk, or had they had wives, so would they still have brought it, but it wouldn't have killed them, or they would have just stayed out entirely.
So the wives have to do this? I don't know why you say that.
Well, because one of the reasons it says, the Chazal say that they died, or that this whole event happened was because they weren't married.
Okay, depends on who your wife is. Look at Korach's wife got him in trouble.
Okay.
Okay.
No, okay, but it wasn't that they just didn't have wives. It wasn't just they were 17 or they were 12. It was that they were fitting to get married and they didn't want to have wives. They were okay. So or they wanted to wait or whatever it was. I don't know. Okay. Yuvan gam ketzad meramaz mikasad pratei chatam shel bnei Yisrael shel bnei Aharon shenimnu b'medrash shechei nekudas kulam yiritzoi v'lo shel. So all of these he's gonna let's go through these reasons that it says and we'll stop here. Okay, what do these reasons have to do? How are these reasons that the Chazal bring are connected to this element of ecstasy without the intent to bring it back down, without this anchoring? They went into the Holy of Holies. They weren't allowed to go into the Holy of Holies. Why is that? So it was the reason that why did they die? Because they went in too much. So it shows they went in too much without thinking about coming out. They went in too far, and that was without the consideration that they had to come out. Secondly, mechusrei begadim. They weren't wearing enough clothes. Begadim. What does it mean clothes? Miramazim al levushe hamitzvahs. They didn't have the levushim, the enclothing of the mitzvahs. Hainu mashim shamitzvahs nislash b'dvarim gashmim. That mitzvahs have a physical encasing in them. The tefillin that has that tefillin, your dibur, machshava dibur maisa. These are the levushim. We kind of wear the mitzvahs on us, whether it's in our thought, whether it's in our speech, whether it's in our action. We kind of enrobe, we kind of put the mitzvah on us. These are the begadim, and that's what allows us to be in this world and yet still experience this godliness of not this world. Ubnei Aharon lo samu magamasam l'kayim mitzvahs, right? Bnei Aharon, Nadav and Avihu, they didn't put their goal to Makayim mitzvahs. They didn't want the physical world to be elevated. That wasn't their goal here. Their goal here was to be totally inspired and elevated and connected to the Almighty in the highest way. It wasn't about bringing it back down into the physical world. It was about totally disconnecting and reconnecting to the higher world. So you see, they weren't wearing enough clothes. They didn't put enough clothing on it. They didn't have the protective layers and clothing that you need when you're doing this very delicate dance of bringing the highest godliness into this lowest world. The Tanya says that when we do mitzvahs, the godliness that is unleashed with a mitzvah really should kill us. The godliness is so intense, it doesn't exist on this level it can't exist in any other level. It's only in our world that this can exist. Why? Because we can't feel it. Because we're so numb to it, we are able to survive. But it is a ruchnius, it is a godliness that would kill us if we did not have that numbness.
I never heard this in my life. Where does it come from?
The Tanya.
Wow.
The Tanya.
And we're everybody's numb.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We are not in touch with this godliness. That's the whole point. It's by design because it's everything else in creation is aware of godliness. Does not have that numbness. A cow, a rock, a tree, they are aware of godliness. They are aware. They have no choice. They are just like even the rocks, in a certain sense, are the most aware of godliness, and that's why they're just rocks. What else can they do? They can't do anything else. They're so by godliness that they just can't move. And so the godliness that we bring into the world and unleash with our mitzvahs is on a level that can't be experienced in any of the other worlds. It's so intense. And it's just because we're so numb to godliness that we are able to do it. And that's because we have these levushim. We have these, you have to put on a hazmat suit to go into Chernobyl. It's such an intense radioactivity that you have to wear clothes. You have to wear protective clothing. So the levushim of the mitzvahs, whether it's our thoughts, our speech, or action, those levushim are our protective layers in a certain sense to this unleashing of intense radioactivity of godliness. Nadav and Avihu took off the hazmat suits. You know, it's like they just wanted to go out onto the space station without the suit. They were just they just wanted that, whatever. They wanted to be connected so much to that godliness that they took the suit off. And, well, if you take the suit off, that's it. I'm sorry. That's your protective suit. So that's me, a chusar begadim. They weren't wearing the bright clothing.
They won. They achieved their goal.
No, they achieved their goal. But what was their goal? Their goal was mistaken. It was a chet. It was a mistake because they didn't want to bring it back into this world. It's for this world. It's not to open the latch and go out into outer space and get sucked out. No, it's to go out, do the little fixing, and come back into the space station so you can enjoy this. It's the space station we want to be.
Moshe says they were holier than you and I.
Exactly. It was but they were unrestrained in their ecstasy, in their connection to Hashem, that they lost sight of the ultimate goal, which is that Hashem wants something. Hashem wants something. What does he want? He wants it in this world. He wants it this world done. He's fine where he's at. He doesn't need Nadav and Avihu to come and disconnect from physicality. He didn't need to create a world if he just wants people to disconnect from physicality. The whole point of this world is to connect Ruchnius to physicality. That's the point of this world. They just took the ship up and without a return plan. They got a one-way ticket. That's not what Hashem wants. They didn't have children. They didn't have wives. What's that? That they weren't involved in the mitzvahs of Privya Verivya. They weren't involved in Puravu. They weren't involved in being fruitful and multiply in Yeshiva Aretz and in establishing this world. Lahamshech neshamas begufim, to continue on bringing neshamas into physical bodies. Ella avoidosam haisa betunua hafachas. Their avoda was opposite. They wanted to take the goof and take the neshama out of the goof. Okay? And this brings us to the point that we started with, which is that the purpose, whenever we're doing mitzvahs, whenever we have she'ifas, whenever we have desires for elevating and for going above and connecting to Hashem, we have to know that at the end of the day, what is my agenda? That I want to do Ratzon Hashem. Nadav and Avihu, in a certain sense, I don't want to say it, but they lost sight of what Hashem wanted. What Hashem wanted was that it should be in this world, that this world should be the place of Ruchnius. And they lost sight of that. They were they were unrestrained. They just let themselves take out and go up, and it wasn't what Hashem wanted. Even though it was motivated from this inner drive to connect to Hashem, which is so nice and so holy, it ultimately wasn't Ratzon Hashem.
So do you think their neshamas were cut off?
No, cut off. I mean, they made a mistake. They made a miscalculation. I don't know why but they were very, obviously they wouldn't have, that, again, the fire and the death and all that wouldn't have happened if they were you and me. If you and me walked in there, we would just like get a sunburn or something. I mean, we would just, they elicited this fire. They taka reconnected. They reconnected. They opened the escape hatch and got out. For us, it would have been like just an overdose. We would have just wanted to feel more alive. They didn't want to feel more alive. They wanted to feel more ruchnius. Okay? So that is, we always have to think about, what am I doing this for? Am I doing this for my kicks and giggles? Is that what I'm doing all this for? Is it for my fun, for my kef? Or am I doing this because this is what Hashem wants? Is it my agenda? Is this my agenda that Hashem is sponsoring my agenda? And when I need a little bit more sponsorship, I go back to the ATM, I go back to the shul and daven a little bit more, and great, now my plans are going to work? Or is my agenda, what is Hashem's agenda? And so there was this mistake with Nadav and Avihu. They allowed their ruchnius and their drive in ruchnius to
overpower them.
To overpower them and to overpower thinking clearly what is really the Ratzon Hashem here. They were totally driven, and they misaligned with what Hashem's will. And so we can always, and that's the lavush. That's the lavush of the mitzvah. The mitzvah is what protects us. The mitzvah, that it's a mitzvah, it's a tzivui. Hashem commanded us. We're doing what Hashem wants. I'm not doing what I want. I want nice relationships. I want covered from my. I want olam haba. I want success and all of these things. So I do mitzvahs so I can get all these things and get good in this world, get good in the next world. That's our agenda. That's our agenda. Hashem's agenda is that we bring ruchnius into this world. It doesn't matter how it feels. It should feel amazing, but it's not about how it feels. It's not about how it feels. It should feel amazing. But even if it doesn't feel amazing, that doesn't mean we're not doing the right thing. And it doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. And it should not be our motivation for doing it because it feels good, because I'm going to get good. That is something like Avodah Zarah. That means it's my agenda, my satisfaction in life, my purpose, my agenda, some other agenda. I want to enjoy my life. It's not also to want to enjoy your life. But I'm doing Ratzon Hashem because it's Ratzon Hashem, because it's good for the world. It's good for the world, it's good for me. But if I don't feel, if the chazan is not so inspiring today, I don't have to say, what is this? What am I doing here? What do you mean, what are you doing here? What is this this is for your enjoyment? You're only into it when the chazan has a good voice? You're only into it when the mazgan's working? It's not for our enjoyment. It's for us doing what Hashem's will is. So Nadav and Avihu, they kind of took it to a different extreme, and so it's a very something to think about, especially during the month of Iyar. Especially during the month of Iyar, because this month, as we spoke about last month, is this trying to become our own person, right? In Nisan, we became babies, we were born, we're infants. Iyar is the time we're maturing, adolescence, where we're differentiating, we're individualizing, we're getting our own personality, our own thing. But it should not come against Ratzon Hashem. It should not come against other people. It should not be at the cost of other people. It should not be at the cost of what it is that Hashem really wants. And Nadav and Avihu, they were so inspired, they were so connected that it became a little too personal. It was their own personal want versus what Hashem wanted. And so that's the tension in Iyar. That's the tension in Iyar. We want to be our own people, but it's with Hashem's agenda.
So during the 50s, General Motors had a saying. They actually advertised it. What's good for General Motors is good for